All right, hey everyone, welcome. My name is Brendan, welcome to Green Apple Books on the Park. I'm a bookseller here, and I'm really excited to welcome Kate Flannery tonight for the first stop in their paperback release tour of Striptease, a memoir of Millenial Los Angeles. Let's go ahead and just give a round of applause now. Kate tonight is joined by San Francisco's very own Laura Albert. We can also clap for that. All right. So before I go away, I think I have to take care of some brief business. So it's a great time to silence your phone now. You don't have to put them away. You can take pictures. And as you can probably guess, it's welcome tonight, especially. And you can post all over media, tag these lovely authors, tag us. We love it. And if you like this event, please do check out our full event calendar on our website. And the restroom is behind us, but it's about to go away because of obvious reasons. When these two are talking, you can't use it. And I'm going to pull down a really beautiful banner. So, all right, we have copies of Kate's book for sale up front at the registers. And she is going to sign them for us tonight as well. And I will have instructions on that at the end of the night. We also have copies of Laura's books too. And do you want to sign them?
Yeah,
awesome. Okay. All right.
Please.
And on that note, I have a special note that when you buy books from us, you're not just supporting independent bookstores, but are also supporting writers like these two who put so much work into their books, and you also get to have a book, which is the whole point. All right, so I'm going to introduce Laura, and then I'm going to introduce Kate. So, Laura Albert has won international acclaim for her fiction, writing as J.T. Leroy. She's the author of best-selling novels Sarah and The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things, which are both available for purchase tonight. The novella Herald's End. She's the subject of Jeff Fierzig's, I'm going to butcher that, feature documentary author, The J.T. Leroy Story, and Lynn Hershman Leeson's film, The Ballad of J.T. Leroy. She has written for and has been quoted in many, many numerous publications, including the New York Times, The Forward, the London Times, Spin, Man About Town, Vogue, Film Comment, Interview, Filmmaker, and many, many more. She has spoken and lectured extensively about gender variance and transgender issues, as well as being a writer for HBO's series Deadwood, and wrote the script and was associate producer for Gus Van Sant's Elephant, as well as writing for the short films Radiance, Dreams of Levitation, and Warfare Pageantry, and you can find out more about all of those things at her website, lauraalbert.org. She serves as a board member of the Independent Living Resource Center in San Francisco. And Kate Flannery was born and raised in northeastern Pennsylvania. She holds a BA in creative writing from Memoir and currently works for the Emmy Award-winning RuPaul's Drag Race. Have you heard of that? I don't know. Yeah, okay. She is the lead singer and frontwoman for LA's premier Little Richard tribute band, Big Dick. Brilliant name. Brilliant. And Striptease is her first book, and that's the reason we're here tonight. So let's go ahead and give a big round of applause for them. Thank you.
Is it on video?
No.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. I'm having such a blast in San Francisco. I haven't been here in a long time, and I want to move here. I love it. So I guess we'll start off with a reading. And usually I always just read the beginning, like no spoilers, but I don't know, I'm going to read something from the middle of the book. This is sort of when I start wising up a little bit about the company. And
What company would that be?
that company would be American Apparel,
Yes.
which, man, we were huge in San Francisco. We were like printing money here. And if you're not familiar with the company, it was a very sort of controversial company that existed in the early 2000s to the mid-teens. And you know, it was very complicated. Everything was made in downtown Los Angeles, but, you know, there were very provocative advertising campaigns, and you guys know this.
They might not. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Alrighty, so I'm going to read this part from, I get an invite to the Big House, which is this big mansion that the problematic, charismatic founder, Dov Charney, had bought really when the company was riding high. Soon Dove moved into a new place, too. It was a major upgrade from the 1,000-square-foot Echo Park bungalow he'd been calling home for the past 3 years while he built the company from scratch. The working-class kid from Canada swapped the humble digs for his own Playboy mansion in the Silver Lake Hills, a $4 million safe haven where he could keep a watchful eye on the U.S. Bank Tower blinking from the downtown skyline. All the girls called it the Big House. It was a great big deco mansion on Apex Avenue, all of Los Angeles hanging around it like a diorama. A palatial bunker of sorts. It was built 100 years ago by another eccentric business tycoon named Frank Garbett, who designed the house to be a concrete fortress because of his debilitating phobia of earthquakes. An unshakable house, the paranoid Garbett decreed. So the walls, the floors, and even the roof were constructed of concrete and lined in fireproof travertine. Each door was reinforced with steel. There were no fireplaces. Tucked away in the big house, a family could survive any Californian natural disaster, and all with a view of the Hollywood sign, which captioned the windows on its north side. When Carolee asked me to come to dinner at the big house, I was pumped. The purchase of the property had been big news, but invites seemed reserved for the hollowed inner circle of American Apparel employees. Now I was counted among them too. A trip to the big house was an acknowledgement of how far I had come, and no matter how I had been feeling about Dove lately, I was proud that I had made it that far up the ladder. I earned my invite to the big house, and I hadn't had to fuck Dove to get it. I was such a good little feminist. Carolee was waiting for me at the front of a huge staircase that led to the big house's front door. It was as imposing as the steps of the Lincoln Monument, dwarfing her. She looked out of place in front of them, like a high schooler on a field trip in her Ray-Bans and jean shorts. She twisted a cigarette out underfoot and gave me a wave. Carolee was back from Tel Aviv with a tan. I was back from Minneapolis with a cold. We hugged as though we hadn't seen each other in years. She held out my arms and gave me the once-over. "Did you get extensions?" she asked. "No, my hair just got long." "Did you dye yours?" Carolee's hair had golden bits woven through it like tinsel. "No, I learned how to surf in Tel Aviv and the sun bleached it." After full inspection and approval of each other's appearances, we climbed the stairs to the landing in front of the house. The setting sun had produced a dreamy haze over the city, with only the tops of palm trees poking through. Planes twinkled like shooting stars as they zoomed across the peachy gold sky. It was a glorious view of the city I was conquering. "I'll give you the tour," Carolee said. I followed her up the rest of the giant staircase and through the front door. We stepped into a cavernous foyer with glossy cherrywood walls, an ornate teak ceiling, and the noble scent of old wood. The room was empty of furniture, but filled with a dozen rolling racks loaded with sample garments, handwritten spec tags fluttering from each one. I reached for a cotton bathrobe that I had never seen before. The wife coat. Sizes extra small through extra large, cotton terry, Miguel on fourth floor dye bath, salmon, lemon, stone, pink. It was a comfy cotton robe with a Peter Pan collar that rested sweetly above a row of covered buttons. Much longer than the 1970s terry robes that grazed the mid-thigh, and way more demure. It looked like a vintage 1950s house coat, something to wear rollers and flip eggs in. It was so domestic. The wife coat was an anomaly amid the sensual disco glitz look that American Apparel had been evolving into these days. What exactly was so in vogue about being a housewife? After 9 months in the company, marriage seemed like an old-fashioned concept to me, like tuberculosis. I didn't really see its commercial appeal. "Dove's obsessed with the wife coat," Carolee said. "He's shooting it upstairs right now." She gestured to a set of double doors at the top of the stairs, shut tight. I wondered what poor dummy was getting shot in there and only compensated with a little bit of spotlight and a free iPod from Circuit City, the going rate for a sexy photo shoot with Dove. What a ripoff, I thought. I'd been stripped of all my delusions about modeling. I'd played that game and lost, and now I was over it. Sounds and good smells were emanating from the kitchen, the only room alive with activity. A lofted skylight poured sun onto Wedgwood blue tiles, hand-painted with vegetables alongside their French names, which seemed comically quaint as a crew of Dove girls in crop tops buzzed around a pot of chicken soup bubbling on the stove. His favorite. I recognized two of the girls. Aika was new in town, from a rural corner of Japan and here on a work visa. I had seen her following Dove around the factory, learning the ropes. She was older than all of us. She was in her early 30s, not that you'd be able to tell by looking at her. Junie was a local girl, 19, fresh out of private school and already appearing in ad campaigns. She was devoted to Dove and the company, and even went as far as harassing one of the girls who filed a lawsuit and got slapped with one herself. Junie was a loyal subject, one of Dove's favorites. Aika spotted me and Carolee and brought us over 2 champagne flutes, each with something floating in it. The waxy sweet smell of jasmine wafted from my nose as I took it. I looked in and saw a single bloom of tuberose bobbing around inside, threaded with silvery champagne bubbles. An aphrodisiac, Aika said. I brought the glass to my lips and took a sip. I waited to feel something. Junie drained her glass and hovered over Aika's shoulder for a refill. Everyone must share, Aika told her, slapping her hand away. Junie stomped proudly into the corner to sulk. She was always a reliable font of crabby teenage attitude, but there seemed to be something else up her ass today. She barely looked at us when we said hello and ignored Carolee's invite to join the rest of the tour. We left her in the kitchen and continued to the dining room, Aika leading the way. Giant picture windows filtered golden light onto a long oak table with laptops instead of plates. A row of girls I recognized from the upper factory echelons sat typing away, tap, 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 tap. There was one empty place sitting at the head of the table. Aika stopped to straighten the silverware. Daddy's seat. How patriarchal, I thought, before I could stop myself. Perfect, right? Carolee said. Huh? I asked. The light, she clarified. I nodded. The house was beautiful, there was no doubt about that, and I wanted to see all of it. We climbed the stairs that led to the master bedroom set of double doors where the photo shoot was taking place. Who's in there? I asked. Carolee put a finger to her lips and we listened for a second. Not Junie, she stifled a laugh. She's so pissed, she wanted to shoot the wife coat. That explained Junie's black mood. She was jealous, something that Carolee never seemed to be. Up until that point, I had always thought of Carolee as the ultimate sexually liberated woman. But seeing her in the big house where everyone had to share, waiting her turn in the sister-wife rotation to get shot by Dove and then printed on the backs of LA weeklies in her most intimate moments, it all struck me as very sad and exploitative. Wait until you see this, Carolee said, grabbing my hand, breaking my train of thought. I have a present for you. She led me into a boring little bathroom on the second floor and swung open the door to a small linen closet. Ta-da, she said, gesturing wide like a showgirl. I stared at the bounty in front of me. The entire closet was packed with brand new Hitachi magic wands. There must have been 100 of the massager cum vibrators that first hit the market in 1968, tiled up to the ceiling in blue and white boxes. Wow. What little furniture there was in the big house was mid-century, and apparently even the sex toys were vintage here. Dove's commitment to aesthetic ran deep. The magic wand plugged into the wall, Carolee explained. No need for batteries anymore. Dove got a bunch to give to the workers at the factory for their sore shoulders and, for other stuff too, she said, laughing. Free English lessons, fair wages, and free sex toys. A 2000s rebranding of the American dream. As creepy as Dove could be, stunts like this were endearing to me. Being pro-vibrator is being pro-woman. And sometimes I had to admit he had the right idea, the stopped clock of the fashion industry. Here, Carolee said, shoving a box in my hand. Take one. I rode off on the magic wand that very night. I could see why it had not gone out of style. From then on, I always had access to a surefire way to get myself off. I used it for many years until it was, this is so true. The whole thing's true, but this is very true. I used it for many years until it was so well worn, a firebolt shot out of its fraying cord and singed my butt cheeks, and I started looking into more contemporary methods of self-pleasure. Thank you for letting me read that part.
The big house. I mean, that's what we call prisons, right? Going to the big house.
And it was like a prison to some, for sure.
Yeah.
All employees, traveling employees lived there, girlfriends lived there. And then you were really under his spell.
There's a line you say that been there, I've been about being one of the girls, like been there. I forget what's the whole line? I've been there, done that. What was
It was about, I had done modeling for the company.
Right.
And found it, it sounded like it would be so empowering. We were in this moment where like there was model worship going on, Tyra's show was on, and it felt like there would be, you're like taking control of your image, and that would be somehow empowering. But when I started working for American Apparel and modeling, and they take your picture to end up on a billboard in Paris. But like, I didn't get paid for that. I was getting paid $10-15 an hour while I like worked in the store and shook my ass and they took a picture. So I was saying like, I had done the modeling. I was over that. It was just, there was nothing empowering about that.
Well, let's talk about how you got involved with American Apparel. I mean, to me, what was interesting about American Apparel was, I remember seeing the ads and thinking that they were escort service ads, because they would say things like I'm open,
or
right?
they'd say meet Carolee,
right?
And we'd have dudes call up the center. I want to meet Carolee,
and they looked different. They were they were more. How would you? Now this is. You say something about the classic girl look, but it was kind of the soft core porn aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
But
well, the campaigns. What's that?
It was preppy. It was
Yeah.
fresh. It was.
Yeah, it was.
But it had this kind of, like very short. I mean, this is American Apparel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, with
It was real. The girls were real.
Yeah.
They had pimples. They had stretch marks on their ass. They were the photos you take with your girlfriends when you're like trying to be sexy. And, they felt authentic because we were kids. We were taking these photos of each other. And that's why it worked. We were coming from this like heroin chic 90s, like Calvin Klein thing. Just like nobody knew girls like that. And you didn't want to fuck them. And then you see these cute young things. But
This was pre-Instagram, obviously. I mean, so you started, you were 23, right?
Yeah, I was 20.
So it was like 05, 08. And you guys have to remember, I just want to set, because the context is really important, so MySpace was 2005, 08. So Instagram didn't come along till 2010. So there wasn't, like right now you see girls that look like girls you see on the street. Before models, really there was an aesthetic, but it was very much a teenager that it looked like a teenager.
Yeah. They were very ahead of their time. I mean, the success of the company rode on the shoulders of the girls that ran it. And, Doug was very smart. I mean, he was a young man at the time. He was 35. But he surrounded himself with youth, fashion trends spring from youth culture. And he knew that, I had just come from Urban Outfitters. I'd worked there for a year after college, and it's a very stodgy environment. Like my boss would wear like khakis. He was like, to me, like an old man. He was probably 40. But like they didn't get it. I mean, they could sell, but like they weren't gonna blow up like American Apparel did. And it was because he harnessed the power of the youth and these girls, and we would do anything to impress him. And he
was literally called Daddy. Did you call him Daddy?
I never did. That was like reserved for
the
girls and like the gay guys that wanted to flirt with him.
Why don't you talk about how you got involved in American Apparel, like how you got hired?
So I had been working at Urban Outfitters in Philadelphia, which is like the polar opposite of Los Angeles. And I was so depressed by the sort of, like dull corporate cubicle culture. I was like, oh shit, like I signed on for, I have to do this for the rest of my life. And it was just sort of a spur of the moment. A lot of my friends were moving to LA. I kind of went and visited. I was like, shit, let's do this. Maybe I can freelance, or maybe I could do more writing. And I was desperate. I was like, I had no money left. And I was in this bar, and this woman came up to me, and she was like, do you need a job? She handed me this business card, and it was American Apparel. And it was like, everything made in downtown LA, sweatshop free, not dominated by, politically correct tribalism.
But wait, did they use that language?
Yes, that's an exact quote. It was very appealing to me as a young person, fresh out of college, ready to revolt from a punk rock background, like you are, sort of on the fringes. Yes, things were a little weird, but I wanted that. I wanted to buck the system. I didn't want to work for a man in khakis. And, we were rewarded with a lot of responsibility. It's such a dichotomy of the company.
You guys were like running, like
we were running shit.
Running the store.
Yes. And a lot of the girls who were his girlfriends went on to sell businesses, such business know-how. Nobody would be sending me, 23, around to like scout locations, and just the amount of responsibility we were given was immense. And I learned a lot about myself and my capabilities there. I also learned Dove was a pig, that's how life is.
Well, you talk in the book about this experience you had that was your mother's that you loved, and they loved it too. And to me, it's very metaphoric that, do you want to talk about what happened to the hat?
Oh, sure. I had this awesome hat. I worked in the factory my first day there when I was really stressing over how to look like the most perfect American Apparel girl. And I left the hat there. And, I called up. I'm like, it's an important hat. I need it back. Oh, you'll get it back. Don't worry, you'll get it back. I got it back. They sent it to the Echo Park store I was working in, but it was in pieces. They had turned it into a pattern so they could sell the hat. And, that's how you do. You deconstruct a garment. They were like, here you go. Here's these scraps of my beloved hat. And, that was what Dove did. He took the best parts of us. He took what he needed. He created something out of it. To our detriment.
When were you aware that the girls, what was their age range of the girls that were?
That was tricky. My first introduction to Dove girls, as we called the girls that worked for the company and dated Dove, I was 23, my friend Carolee was 22. And, I'm fresh out of Bryn Mawr, I'm a feminist, we're full-grown women making decisions. You want to fuck the boss? Go right ahead. But I didn't realize power dynamics and all of that. You're so young. And later, when you're 23, you can fuck whoever you want, of course. But when, the girls started getting younger, there's an incident in the book that I talk about where I hired a girl who was in high school. This is really when I first started. And then I, see her in the photos. It's like very upsetting. Yeah. One important thing to note, just for gossip's sake, if you've read the book, all of the girls that are in relationships with him, even including the ones I wrote about, Junie and Ika, are still with him to this day. They live with him. They work for the new company. They're in
and the
relationships.
Company is with Yi, right?
Yes, and he's working for Ye.
Yeah.
I know, like meeting of the minds there. He loves controversy and press.
And they did a White Lives Matter shirt, right?
What's that?
I heard they did a White Lives Matter shirt.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's what's so confusing, because Kanye makes his White Lives Matter shirts. They're on Los Angeles apparel shirts.
Right.
Dove says, that's too much. They dump all the shirts in Skid Row. They're giving them out. Yes.
No,
it's a huge scandal, and Dove is like, I'm divorcing myself from Kanye. That's my understanding. But then, like, less than a year later, there's a TikTok of Dove, like, ranting in the street. These shirts have been stolen from the Ye. These shirts, like, so he's back in there. There was all this press about him, like, being the creative head of his new company. Don't quote me on that, but he's somehow involved. I can't even imagine. You know, Dove is Jewish. Like, what's going on there?
Wait, what is that? I mean,
well, because Kanye went on those anti-Semitic rants.
Yeah, I know. There's what is it? A shanda for the
Shanda for the Goyim.
Shanda for the
What's
Goyim.
that?
Yeah. You want to explain?
You brought it up.
Yes, I did. We got Epstein, we got Harvey, we got some problems here, but you know.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is a lot of the girls, he seemed to target girls that were very wounded. Like those tended to be the ones that he took into his bed.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you ever think, I mean, we talked about, we've done this before, just so you know,
This one's way more fun though. I know you better now.
Yeah, we've done all kinds of fun things together.
Yeah, we have.
No Hitachi magical. What we talked about was that he seemed to have like a lot of predators, and it's clear he is one, that they are very good at spotting someone who's damaged, because once you have that kind of the inciting incident or primal source of trauma, very often you are attracted to or need that kind of attention from an older person. It makes you way more susceptible to being victimized again in some ways. And you had kind of talked about, I mean, if he had hit on you, if he had tried to make it sexual, would you have done it? Would you have done doing it?
I know, it's so tricky. You know, though I was not, there's a line in striptease, you know, though I wasn't attracted to Dove, and to me, like when I was 23, 35, it might have been 70, you know? But like I wanted him to want me. Like there was collateral in that. Like I wanted, you know, and thank God he didn't. Thank God he didn't like skinny white girls, you know? Because if he did, I really don't know what would have happened.
I wonder if it's just like you were too healthy. Like it was that you didn't have
a vulnerability that the other girls had. I had one of my writing mentors said that. You know, she was like, why weren't you targeted? And I was like, because I'm a white girl. And she was like, no. Is it because you didn't have the vulnerability that those other girls had? And I think that's true.
Yeah.
You know, predators sniff that out like blood in the water. And I mean, I was certainly vulnerable. I mean, I worked there for 3 years. I was certainly vulnerable in other ways. But yeah, I'm super fortunate that he didn't turn his laser sights on me. You know, he would tell me, you're not my girlfriend. You're like my sister. You're like my sister.
And that's interesting. It's creating this kind of family type of dynamic. And he then...
Yeah, that's so true. So familial and weird. So culty. I mean, that's just straight up cult language.
Because he knows you're not that wounded, you're not fuckable for him, but you can be trusted to be a recruiter, to use your power to recruit his kind of girl in. And how was that for you?
Not good. No, I mean, at the time, it was I had been working in the retail stores, which if anyone has worked retail, you know how that goes. And I was so desperate to like climb out of there and get a good job at the factory.
There was kind of an idea that they would be giving you a position as a designer. There was always a promise of that.
Oh yeah. But the thing was, like, that was totally feasible. Like people, all you had to do, the company was growing so rapidly, just a little bit of gumption, and he would be like, you're flying to New York tomorrow. You're in charge of the Mexico City store. Was some people
gumption, or was it?
He was able to suss out our abilities. You know, I mean, he liked girls who worked. The girlfriends worked. We all worked. If you didn't work,
Well, it's like a pimp. I mean, yeah, he's like, you know,
Yeah.
he had his lot lizards, you know.
It's true.
They worked a lot.
You
yes.
had to work.
But anyway, you're talking about how it was for you. So when you're working in the store,
Yeah, that was my way to get out. He was like, fly to New York City. I need 15 new girls. I need your vision. And it was easy. It was very, I had no vision. I would just hire people that had like a resume with work experience.
did you have that card?
Oh yeah, I had that card.
Ah,
Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, there's a photo insert here, 20 photos, and that card is indeed in there. I had to like fight for it. They were like, we think this is boring. I'm like, that's the card I got recruited with. That's the card I went on to recruit with. It's going in that book. Yeah. Yeah, I went on to Scout, and sometimes I think...
What would you look for when you scouted? Like, what were the tells?
Physically, because of course that's important when you're working retail. I don't care what anybody says. Every place has their style and their brand.
Even Lane Bryant.
Yeah, no, everywhere. Even this place, I'm sure. Brandon's like a star here. I would look for like no nail polish, natural hair, no bra, no piercings or tattoos. That would be like, they're so 90s, tattoos are so 90s. Like just this like natural Farrah Fawcett 70s girl. But really, I have to defend myself here. American Apparel get in a lot of trouble for, oh, you just hired on looks. But I really did. That's why I was successful. I looked for people that like could work and would work and like knew how to manage a store.
Well, their tagline was they were sort of saying that it was the intellect as well as, but that was like kind of bullshit. But
there were some dummies who worked there. They're cute. I hired them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you didn't. You obviously could tell when someone was at home, but you also knew what his flavor was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's very idealistic to look back and be like, oh, you were like feeding these girls to Dove. You were picking out what he liked. But really, I was just like hiring for a store that was like the Gap at that point. And a lot of people, like on Goodreads, the like bad reviews, like want me to like take accountability. Like, you're to blame. But like, I was a 23-year-old, like, Dove Charney is to blame. Like, I'm not going to take responsibility for his bad behavior. I was wrapped up in that like everyone else. And
well, I also think the context, the time is important. And
oh, for sure.
What this is way before Me Too, and it was way before it kind of there weren't that many outlets for someone to call you and question you and say, hey, what is this about? Where now there is anything, it's maybe the other way. Very often people don't even give someone a chance to take a step and look at what's going on before they pounce. But
yeah, it's true.
But yeah, you were in a pretty dangerous ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So what were the girls? I mean, did they? I imagine they were pretty excited and pretty happy. Would they move to Los Angeles or they would be in New York, or how would that work?
Oh, well, I mean, when the company got bigger and bigger, I mean, they were everywhere. We were in Europe, we were everywhere. And, we would travel to train other people. Like, the most loyal girlfriends got the best gigs. I have that line in there. Like,
what does it mean?
Carolee was back from Tel Aviv. Like, I was going to Baltimore.
But what does it mean to be a loyal girlfriend?
Well, you had to be a hard worker, but you also had to be romantically involved with him. And I wanted to prove to myself that, like, I could get those gigs without. But really, when it came down to it, we were all under his thumb. It didn't matter if you were...
So it didn't, I mean, because that wasn't an option, because he wasn't interested in that. you could work. I mean, you worked really, really hard.
I did. It was the hardest I've ever worked.
And what was there was a price cap that you could make, right? I mean,
well, when I first started, I remember we were making $10.50 an hour, and that was like a couple bucks over minimum wage. Like I could easily snag, when I go to a new city, I just walk into Urban Outfitters and be like, you, and you, because we will pay you $3 more. We'll give you a store. Like I would steal managers. You're in charge. Here you go. I'm leaving in 2 weeks and it's up to you. And they would have pride in the store. And the other thing that's so important to remember, when all this bad behavior was going on, when sexual harassment lawsuits were like piling up, I could always think about the good parts of the company. We are making everything in downtown Los Angeles. We are like changing lives for these people who have never had any opportunities. The factory was a utopia. Like English lessons, a masseuse going around.
Magic wands.
The magic wands for everybody. So like, okay, yeah, Dove wants to sleep with his employees and they consensually sleep with him. I could turn a blind eye to that and be like, but look what we are doing. We are proving that we can do this ethical business model, ethical capitalism. I believe that was a thing. We can do this and change the way America operates and bring those jobs back here where we so desperately need them. And I still believe in that. I saw how it could succeed so rapidly and make money, and all you have to do is treat people fairly and make everything here. Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, the retail employees certainly got different treatment than the factory employees. Most of those factory employees, when the factory shuttered, just moved right over to his new company,
but there
LA
were
Apparel.
ice raids, right? And
yes, there were.
Do you know what happened to any of those?
I don't know. Those raids started happening right when the company was hemorrhaging money. But also becoming very large. I mean, of course, they just sent them right into that factory.
Wow,
of course he would employ undocumented immigrants. I mean, he'd ride the buses like early in the morning in LA and be like, "Are you going to a terrible sweatshop? Come with me. I'll give it all to you." And he did.
But there was.
I mean, he is a brilliant man,
But when people were arrested, I don't get the feeling there was protection.
Yeah, I was honestly out of there by then.
So have you heard, this whole process of writing the book and putting it out there, I remember when we talked, you were still hoping he would respond.
Yeah, well, you go through this roller coaster. At first, I'm like terrified when the book comes out, like, is he going to sue me? Is he going to call me a liar? And then that doesn't happen. And then you realize that, like, there's so many other books out there and you want press. And you're like, I want him to come and call me a liar. Like, I want him to. And one of the newspapers did a piece on the book, and it was the Washington Post. And I was waiting for that one comment that was like, we reached out to Doug Charney and he did not respond to comment. And there it was. So, no, I haven't heard from him. I'm sure he knows about the book. I'm sure he likes it. Like I said, he's, what's the saying? All press is good press. Like, that's how he lives. And it's true. He masturbated in front of a journalist. It made him incredibly famous.
Wait, he did what? He masturbated?
Don't you guys know about this? It's in the book. Jane magazine sent this young, chipper journalist, and he was like, she followed him for a couple weeks and wrote this article, and he, did what he does and asked her, permission, and she's a journalist. Was she going to be like, no? She was like, okay. And
but what permission did he ask? Yeah.
Can I jerk off? I don't know what he said. Can I masturbate in front of you? She's very clear about it in the article.
So he did a Louis C.K.
He not only no, because that wasn't consensual.
Well, sometimes he would have just asked people, but
but that was the thing for me. I was 23. I read that. Any normal person would be like, my boss is masturbating in front of a journalist. But I was this young feminist in this new age of like sex tapes and Playboy spreads, and I was like, well, he asked, like at least he's not some like creepy perv like jerking off in the corner, like the wolf isn't wearing anything,
It's so sad. I mean, totally, because it's like what women what girls have gone through, that Dove is a fucking improvement, you know? It's the kettle, that going to the big house and a closet full of fucking vibrators is heaven. Wow, you don't need batteries. Whoa, great. Can I blow you now? I'll swallow. I mean, we have been so fucking mind fucked. And it's really it must have been very upside down world to try to find. I mean, I understand you felt empowered. There are a lot of people who worked as scouts, and they were scouting for all kinds of different, from movie directors, with photographers. I mean, that was pretty common. And to do that to people, I think it takes a lot to be able to, especially in the culture, if the culture is saying this is okay, this is what you do, to say not okay. It does happen, but when there are all the socioeconomic forces surrounding it, it's very hard to fight against that.
We were living in a girls gone wild time.
Right.
You know?
And how did it end? I mean, I remember the parts about the Miami store, and you want to talk about that?
How my story ended, or how the company ended?
All of that, yeah.
Well, things came to a head for me when I was talking about...
so to speak.
Yeah, not exactly, thank God. When I found these photos of a very young girl that I had hired.
How old was she?
Oh my gosh, well, there's this whole thing with the legal edit where I said her age, verified, and they were like, can we say she's a junior in high school instead of saying she's 16? Because I guess maybe you could be of age when you're a junior in high school. She was 16.
14?
She was 16.
But they were trying to pass her as...
No, they were saying, instead of, because, you know, when I wrote the book, I was like, she was 16 years old when I hired her.
Yeah.
And I think maybe she was 17 in the photos, or nearly 17. And they were like, let's change it to say she's a junior in high school so I wouldn't get in trouble. But I'm here to say, yeah, I mean, that was a turning point for me, for sure.
Wait, seeing the photos or knowing that he was fucking her?
Both, because the photos were confirmation. They were in his bed. They were in the big house.
But when you hired her to be a model.
Oh no, I just hired her to work part-time at the Echo Park store, and then a year later I'm in Miami, and you know, she was gonna leave and go to school, and so I sort of lost track of her, and there she was. And you know, I did, it's funny, it was a MySpace message. I was like, hey, you're in the store in Miami. Just sort of testing the water to see what she'd say. And she was like, yeah, you know, isn't it great? There was nothing I could say to her, you know.
Well, she probably was a traumatized, damaged kid. I mean,
I'm sure.
And it was probably for her something that felt like a life raft.
Yeah.
So...
But I think it is important to say that even after that experience, I stayed with the company for 2 more years.
Of course.
You know, that was my world. I still believed in the company. I, you know, was in Los Angeles where I didn't know anybody except for the people that I worked with. And a lot of people online will judge me for that too. But, you know, cults are strong. Abusive relationships are strong. They're extremely hard to break out of. And sometimes you just need to survive, and I needed that paycheck.
What was your family saying at the time?
You know, I was fresh out of college, and I was so desperate to prove that I could do this on my own. I could move across the world and do it all on my own, not the world, the country. That I kept a lot of things from them. You know, eventually I began to tell them, but my mom, you know, they had a lot of faith in me. You know, my mom is sort of this old school, Italian American, a job's a job, you know, you just stay out of it, you know, you just do your job. And
but that's really common what women have been told. I mean,
yeah. Totally. I mean, I would, you know, if I had a daughter, I would certainly tell her different things, but we're from completely different generations.
I mean, and you literally did move across the world from where you're from. That
Yeah.
was quite a...
Yeah, totally. It was very different. And they were proud of me. I didn't want to be like, my boss is jacking off a journalist. I wanted to be like, hey, look what we're doing in downtown LA. Look at this really ethical company I'm working for. And I'm flying around the country and making you guys proud.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been really... So how did the company fall apart, and how did it end for you?
So there were these ICE raids in 2008. The recession had sprung, and we had stopped opening new stores, and that was my gig. I would hire for these new stores.
But part of it was he was opening really fast. He was
expanding insanely rapidly because he just thought his success would just keep growing and growing. These sexual harassment lawsuits were
a little troublesome.
Yes, see, but none of them were by the girls he was sleeping with. They were by women who worked in the store. I mean, this is when I was there. I don't know what happened after I left. They would be like, there are hustlers on the wall, or someone used foul language. Like, Gloria Allred represented these women. If you read it, I'm like, this is the fashion industry. Like, the F word, a vintage hustler on the wall. Like, honestly, the beginning sexual harassment suits looked like cash grabs. They weren't by some women I knew who could really be getting them. And so what he would do, because they were sort of nonsensical in the beginning, I mean, powerful men get crazy, and I was only there for 3 years. But they would just pay them out. The company was making money, and it was just like, here, take it, which inspired more and more and more. And then the company was really paying out. And then like a board of suits came on, and they were like, we have to stop this. You cannot get, sued anymore. There's this funny line that Ryan Holiday says where he's like, someone says to Dove, like, Dove, what if someone told you could never, ever, I forget, like, eat chocolate again? Like, what would you do? And he was like, I should be allowed to sleep with whoever I want at this company. Like, he just couldn't be contained. But also, once he eventually was ousted, and the company couldn't sustain itself because he was the brains behind the operation, and the girls were the workers, and with him not there, what was it? So the company just went bankrupt, and that was the end of that.
And how did you got out before that?
I got laid off. Yeah, I cried when they kicked me out.
Wow.
That was like my whole world. Yeah. And then I started working in reality television.
With our friend Fenton.
Oh, yes. Well, that is a true, lovely reward to work for World of Wonder.
Yeah, when we read, I invited Fenton Bailey, who's the founder, and he was very sweet. And
yeah, he's amazing. They made like the movie Party Monster, the documentary, I think, too. I mean, yeah, everything they do is golden. It's the company that makes Drag Race, and it's a really great place to work.
But it's interesting that how they haven't made yet it's quite a reality series type of thing. I mean, so your book's been optioned by Amazon. You want to talk about that?
Sure. I'm not allowed to spill all the juicy details, but
in development.
Yes, that's right. I was super lucky. Even before the book came out, I optioned it to Amazon. There's like a young, lovely star attached, and we're trying to make it work. We're trying to get a good script. We've gone through a few scripts that weren't quite right, but yeah, it would be really good. It's really hard to get something made, fingers crossed, but
it's interesting because it's hard because times have changed and it is problematic,
Yeah. But also this whole like indie sleaze thing is happening. Like indie sleaze. Like if you told me back then indie sleaze, like that's what we were doing. And it's funny, indie sleaze, like the sleaze is from like Dove Charney, Terry Richardson, Larry Clark. They even have the same like mutton chops and those aviators. Like they defined that era, and it was sleazy.
And we ate it up. All right, should we open it up for questions?
Yeah, I'm having so much fun chatting. But
please say your name and ask your question. If you don't ask questions, I will call on you. Noah?
I'm still taking it all in because I kind of grew up alongside more maybe like a younger sister, but definitely saw the impact of everything you're talking about, and lived in LA and up here, so I have a Californian perspective of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be very devastating to lose an entire world and then try to build everything from start when maybe you don't have the best support network happening because things are in pieces.
Yeah.
It's the best way I could describe that.
Yeah, for sure. It's really hard to get out of situations like that. And also, one thing I always have to sort of reiterate is that it was really fun. Like, it was a fun job. It didn't feel like work.
Sounds like a fun job. Like, no offense, but a lot of the things that you're talking about, I guess, were per norm because people were just very honest behind closed doors with what they wanted.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel that social media has turned that around, and there's some crossovers of trauma that affect both sides. When, because I was at the backspace of MySpace was a huge connector. And I can imagine how huge that would have been for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, went forward with everything. But that's like you jumped over, an experience that not everybody has, on what it was like before social media and not. And how we network that way now.
Yeah.
How did you go to any therapy after when you kind of realized it was...
No.
So this was kind of your therapy.
Yes, and it was very therapeutic. Reading the audiobook was incredibly
so you
therapeutic.
did that. How long did that take you?
It didn't take that long. We scheduled 5 days and we did it in 4.
It's hard.
About 3 to 4 hours of reading a day. It was very, it surprised me, the parts that made me emotional and the parts that didn't at all.
Like what made you emotional?
Like reading about seeing the photos of Dawn. Like you can hear it. You can hear my voice sort of warbling. Whereas, there's a sexual assault in the book too, and I could kind of just breeze through that.
Sometimes, I know for myself, when I was in the middle of, I wrote under a pseudonym, and when I was in it, I was just in it, and it wasn't until after, as I write about it, that I began to kind of integrate and feel and realize what was beneath it and the trauma and what was going on. Was that similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah, like the act of writing the book is so difficult and scary, and I was just trying to get through it. But now, I don't know if this answers your question, but I think it's deeper now than when I wrote it. Is that what you mean? Like, it affects me more now than when I was like piecing it all together. Like, now I see the arc more and see like how it affected my life. And it's been a year since the book came out, and it's such a catalyst when you put out a book like this. It just really upends a lot of things, and especially a book that I'm so like vulnerable in it. Like, I feel like you really, or sometimes people will read the book and think that they really know me after they read it, and they do, because like I put everything in, this is who I am, and that like makes you sort of vulnerable sometimes.
Well, sometimes we're not aware, as a writer, how very honest and transparent we actually are. More questions, please. Yes, the hand, Sarah.
Hi. I was wondering, I have 2 questions. One is, did you ever see Dove Charney again after you left the company?
I'll repeat after. So your first question is, did you see Dove Charney?
If I ever saw Dove Charney again after I left.
And what's your second question?
I'm just also curious about his interactions with the media, because he said it seemed like he knew that was a terrible thing to do with the Jane reporter, and he just did it anyway, and he knew that it would be so controversial, and he loved it. And so I'm just wondering why he doesn't interact with the media more now, why he doesn't report more controversy now.
So let me repeat that for the people at home. So the second part of the question is he was doing fucked up shit. That's how you put it, right? As a journalist.
Exactly.
Pardon?
Yes.
And he was interacting with the media, and now he is apparently not doing that kind of fucked up shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she wanted to know what your opinion is. Why has he suddenly stopped doing fucked up shit?
Yes.
Is that kind of it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. No, I have never seen Doug Charney since. I haven't talked to him since. The last time I saw him was in the factory. Once I sort of disobeyed him at the end of this book, I was really sort of dead to him. He used me to work. I was good at my job.
Wait. When you say disobey, what do you mean?
He wanted me to, after this assault happens, he wanted me to tell HR it was no big deal, to stay in Miami, to get an apartment. It was just essentially a bribe, and I ended up leaving.
But you were laid off, right?
Oh, well, this is like, I stayed at the company for 2 more years after. This book covers my first year in the company. So that was the end of that. That was the last time I saw him, was he saw me and was like, I knew you'd leave Miami. Like, I knew you couldn't hack it. It's just like a little insult. But I continued working for him for a year or 2 after that. I'm sure I did communicate with him. He would send me to cities, but I was like out. I was cast out of that inner circle once that happened. And for the other question, which is very interesting, because it really shines a light onto his mindset. When that Jane article came out, he was shocked that she had written about that he had masturbated many times over the course of the day and had an employee pleasure him in front of her. He went into hiding. He was devastated that article came out.
Wow.
Then he saw the impact of it. And, just sort of embraced that. He saw the mileage. But, that's what's interesting about him. No one knew the rules. Only Dove knew the rules. There was this one incident, this is after I left, but man, did I hear about this. There's this huge database of photos. Photos of girls in the store, photos of girls in Dove's bed, photos of Dove, and anybody could tap into it. Well, the database was leaked, and there are these photos on Gawker. There was Dove, totally naked, bopping around, his dick flopping around, dancing. And there it was on Gawker. And no one knew if he was okay with that. No one knew, maybe he sent that. No one knew if that was okay. And somebody finally called him and was like, Dove, there's this photo, do you know? And he was like, oh my God, what? Oh my God, we have to take that off. Oh, holy shit. It was just nobody had any sense of what the rules were. He was, he just is who he is. He doesn't do it for press. He would feel shame and...
That's so interesting about the James reporter, because that means that he had her under his thumb and she would not dare, that she would be the one who would be embarrassed.
That's very true.
Let me repeat that for the people at home. So what Sarah said is that the expectation that he was doing his behavior was baked in, that she would not go public with that because it was a kind of collusion, because she was giving permission for him to do this. And then he is shocked, absolutely shocked, that she would break that. Mm-hmm. And is that right?
Yeah, so he was a bully, right?
Well, to complicate things even more, if you read the article, and you can, it's online. Her name is Claudine Coe. It's a fascinating read. She talks about Dove. She talks about him jerking off. She talks about him getting a blowjob from somebody. And she also talks about the company and everything that's going on. And the very last line of the article was Dove asks me to stay. And I kind of think I want to.
Wow.
The girls are still with him.
Yeah.
He's not a Weinstein. He's not... No one's he's a violent rapist. There's no criminal charges. It is this super hazy area.
There were charges. I mean,
not criminal, though. She
points for him.
I mean, yeah. See, see, I always find myself defending him, and I don't mean to at all. He's despicable. But it's very interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's not black and white, you know. Nothing is exactly.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
Hey.
What's your name? Sorry.
Julian.
Hi, Julian.
I have two questions, totally unrelated. One is, you've mentioned several times about being fresh out of college and coming here from Philadelphia, from Bryn Mawr. Have you ever gone back to Bryn Mawr to tell this story?
I'm just going to repeat that because that's what I'm supposed to do. Wondering if have you gone back home to Bryn Mawr?
Yes, I have indeed. I just had my 20-year reunion last summer, and I went and did an author panel. And Bryn Mawr, of course, loves the book because Bryn Mawr is sort of like the voice of reason that whispers in my ear, like, hey, something weird going on here. And I also did an event in my hometown, which was really special at a university there. So yeah, I have gone back.
And the second question, thank you. The second question is, you have a degree in creative writing. You write really well, from what I can tell, and you've just been talking about how much this is memoir. Are you writing fiction?
Okay, the question is, you're a good writer. Are you?
You've been my editor, man.
Are you writing fiction?
I feel I'm a true blue memoirist. Like, I had a zine in the 90s. Like, I've always only written nonfiction. The book that I'm starting now, I envision as nonfiction. It's like a coming of age, demented story set in 1996 when this like rumor panic sweeps my like hillbilly hometown. But my editor, the editor of Striptease, was like, "You should Truman Capote that up. Like, let's like let's nonfiction novel it. Like, you know, you could do so much more. You could grow as a writer." And I'm sort of trying to figure that out because I feel so strongly about like telling the truth, like my truth or, you know, whatever this is, that I don't want to fictionalize. But there is so much more you could do. We'll see what happens. He might get his way. I don't know. It would be more fun. Like, there's a scene in it. I haven't told anybody about this, so I'm spilling it for you guys. Where like Marilyn Manson comes to my hometown, he like walks the mall. This is like before he's famous, and I was like, man, maybe I should like write it from like his perspective. Like that'd be kind of fun. The book is also full of predators, just like Striptease. So Marilyn's in there too. Those are good questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
I had a thought while you were speaking, is that I recently watched the Brandy Melville documentary, and I was thinking about how we always look at the past from a viewpoint that we've evolved. And that was then, but now we know better. And in your opinion, and if people aren't familiar with Brandy Melville, it's a store in the mall that's staffed with young girls, ran by middle-aged guys. It's actually a store that doesn't even attempt to be ethical. Like, they kind of flout it. It's very sweatshop. They only make clothes in one very small size. Do you feel that the world has actually evolved? You mentioned the indie sleaze revival. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so just for the folks at home, so Jessica, right? The question is Brandy Melville, which is a store. Is it a chain?
Yeah.
And they make super small. They're kind of doing an American Apparel,
fast fashion,
but they're not even pretending to be environmentally friendly or worker friendly. Have we made any traction?
Girls are eating it up. Like,
I know. Like when I go on TikTok and it's like all girls in American Apparel clothes and all of that. I don't know. I mean, I like to think that social media is such an important tool, but it is a double-edged sword, you know? I think young women are definitely less likely to, like, take shit. But then when I see, like, 14-year-old girls looking like Kardashians, I'm like, oh, no. I don't know. I believe in progress, and that's a really hard question, Jessica.
Well, I think writing books like that, like yours, helps inform that if someone feels nostalgic and they want to go look that up, like, oh, okay, maybe it's not just about cute outfits.
Yeah, no, it's true. Or even when people are nostalgic for like the 60s, like we are, you know, you're like, wait a minute, would you really want to go back there? Holy shit.
But it's interesting because I think there's a split. So on one hand, there's the fashion, but then it's the question of they are presenting often what we're seeing on Instagram, but if the organization were being inappropriate with workers and girls, I think there would be more of a response and that people would be more protected because now there's more of an awareness. So we have time for maybe one or two?
One question.
One question. So if somebody got a good one?
Like a funny one. Aren't you curious?
Yeah, Sammy.
I am curious. Millennials here from Northridge, California. So when I saw it in the first chapter, I was like, yes.
Totally.
Did you ever find out what happened to your bathtub photos? And
Oh, yeah.
But let me repeat that one. Is it a two-parter or just
no,
that
just
one?
that. What happened?
Okay. Did you ever find out what happened to your bathtub photos? And is your mommy happy about it?
Well, what's funny about the bathtub photos is I kept a copy of them too. And I don't know what happened to them. For all I know, they were never used that I saw, but that doesn't mean that they weren't used. But so I wanted to reclaim the bathtub photos and put them in the photo insert because there they are, like with the light, with the cubes, the ice cubes, and
But you're in a
Carolee's
bath?
boob.
You're in a bath with other people?
Yes, I'm in these three girl.
So do we
We're
describe
like
the photo?
we're performing for
We
the.
haven't all seen the photos.
Well, and here's the thing: is that you would have, but they wouldn't let me put them in the photo insert.
So you don't get ownership of your own photo?
Oh no, I do. I do.
You have the ownership.
Yeah. I guess. Well, it's actually funny. You know who has the ownership? Whoever took the photo. Even if they're just like, here, take my camera.
That's normal, but at
Yeah.
least you have your...
Yeah, I have them. And they're hot photos. They're awesome, and I feel sort of fondly about them. But like the publishing industry is like kind of square, I'm sure, as you know. And they were just like, a nipple, oh my god, no, we can't put a nipple in here.
They still are.
But you know what, I should just put them on social media, you know? What? They're mine.
They think.
Yeah.
Even Trump does that one.
Yeah.
Connie, I'm going to break the rules. No questions. Okay. Well, we are done for the night. I want to thank you so much for coming out, and everyone. I just want to say, Striptease. It's on Holt, correct?
Yes, Henry Holt.
Henry Holt.
Now on paperback, also audiobook if you're an audiobook person. And yeah, thank you so much, Laura. It's such a pleasure being here, and I really appreciate it. And thank you to Brandon and this beautiful bookstore.
Thank you for Green Apples on the Park, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And we will see you soon. Please do support your local starving Arthur.
Yeah, thank you. One more big round of applause. So please go buy the books up front. I think we have just enough for every single person here at the cashiers. And then where I was standing and hovering, that is where Kate will be signing. Please help yourself to drinks. And thank you so much for coming out. Please check our site for more events like this. And thank you. That's it. Good night.
Thank you.
And that will be available shortly.
Oh.